Okay, so I've sanded just one side, nice and smooth, and I don't go to the end of my all the way out to the outside of my sandpaper because that sands a whole lot more. I don't know if it doesn't tack as well or something, but it seems to. So I kind of stay in here in the middle, and I just kind of rub it around like back and forth a little bit, and that gives me a pretty good surface. I'm going to do that to all of these real quick. Like I say, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it should be very, very, very close. Okay, I only want to sand, enough to get it flat. So I've got two smooth mated surfaces here. So when I put these together, I'll get rid of that markings. So that should be good. Okay, I'm going to sand the edges of these to get rid of this purple on here, so I can see a little bit better. Sometimes I'll have a little bit of glue or something on them, or pencil marks, and I want it nice and clean so I can see real well. Because if it's nice and clean, I can see my lines, so I can get everything lined up, all my little veneers and everything lined up so much better. Okay, so next thing I want to do is get my glue, and this is Type Bond Original, not 3. I just put it in this bottle because it wasn't all gunked up. So I've got four sides sanded. If anybody has any questions, please holler out, because I get kind of focused in what I'm doing, and I miss a lot of things. One thing I will do real quick, I will take some sandpaper, and a lot of times when you cut and sand, you get little fuzzies on the edges, and we don't want that in our glue joints. So I might just sand those edges. If I've got a lot of little fuzzies, I don't know if you can see that or not, where I sanded, I've got a burr basically coming over the top of this right here. So I just want to hit that because I don't want any of that burr or any specks to get in my glue joint. I want to have a good glue joint. So we'll do that to all of them real quick. They're small, but they can make a big difference. Okay, so I'm going to take my Type Bond Original. Make sure I got the right side, sanded side. Sometimes I can't tell very well. Okay, that's my sanded side. And if you have to, look at the scratches, the scratch pattern in the light, and you can see that you've covered the whole surface. Okay, and then I'm going to take this piece, and I'm going to rub this joint really good to get rid of all that glue that I just went all through the trouble of putting in there. I want to get rid of that glue. Now I can't, I got it all on my fingers now. And I wore my good pants, so I can't just wipe it on my pants. Okay, so what I want this to start tacking up. I want this to start getting tight. I don't want it too tight because I tell you what, this glue, it don't take very long. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna line up these woods and veneers. And I gotta do that on both sides because a lot of times it's a little skew. So you gotta make sure the veneers or the woods are lined up on both sides. That's why you wanna kind of clean it off. You wanna kind of, a lot of times your pieces will be a little askew from each other, but that's okay. As long as our veneers are lining up, I don't really care. Okay, so that's not looking too bad. Let me, something about like that. I keep going back and forth, and all the time while I'm fiddling with it, that glue's starting to get tacky and starting to firm up a little bit. So that right there, I'm not gonna clamp it. If that's a nice, smooth, sanded surface, I shouldn't have to clamp it. I just glue it, rub it together, and let her sit. And so I'm gonna go ahead and do the other one real quick since I've got it out. Put plenty of glue on there. Make sure I got my sanded surface. Rub that glue joint. Get rid of that excess glue. I'll wipe that up later. Okay, and then let's rub it some more. Make sure that starting to get tacky. Okay. Now I can line up my veneers. That's not too bad. And a lot of times on the very edges here, the sander will sand a little bit more or something like that. And I'll have a little bit of a gap maybe on right on the edge. Don't worry about it. We're gonna make this thing round. All these edges will be turned off. So don't be too concerned about that. Now you don't want to, you want to make sure you got a nice joint in here, but on the edges, it's not such a big deal. Okay, so that's pretty good. So I'm gonna leave them set overnight. Okay, so those have set overnight. So now I've got two mated surfaces. I'm going to sand, oh, I'm getting glue all over myself. I'm going to sand these surfaces flat again, just so I can see real good. I want to be able to see all my edges. That's not too bad. Okay, but obviously when I glued these two together, it's not on the same plane anymore on this edge. This edge is looking good. Nice crisp points here and everything's looking good. But this edge needs to be sanded. The 12-inch disc sander isn't the best job for that, but that's all I got. I'm using it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of hold my piece lightly right here. I'm not going to go out here to the edges. If I hold it flat like that, then I'm going to be sanding a whole lot more here than I am in the middle here. So I'm going to kind of hold it just a little askew, not supported except for the very corner here maybe. And I'm just going to hold it lightly. I've got some good sandpaper in here, even though it doesn't look like it. And I'm just going to sand this just flush. I don't want to go any more than I have to, but I want to make sure this is flush. I just kind of wiggle it back and forth, trying to stay away from my edges. Now your sander might be better than mine, so that might work better. I put down a little bit of the inside here. We'll go a little bit more. I try not to press down too hard. But okay, I've got a little bit on the inside, but that's not going to be a big deal. I'll make that the bottom of my bell maybe. Same thing to this one.
I would recommend that everybody mute themselves if you're not talking, because you make a noise and you pop up in the main view.
Okay. You talking to me?
No.
Oh, okay.
Everybody else.
Okay. Okay. So I've sanded both of those, and you can see your scratch pattern. And I'm going to hit this with a little bit of sandpaper on the edges where I may have raised up a little bit of a burr, or just have some pieces of wood, loose pieces of wood. Okay, so now I've got two more sanded pieces, and I can fit them together. Now this is not going to be perfect. This is just a Christmas bell. If you all have to be perfect, yeah, you could probably do that better than I could. I don't worry about it that much. This is just an ornament. I'm not too worried. Now this side, I don't know if you all can see, this side is not lining up. This side is actually a little bit bigger diameter than this side. So it's not quite lining up. I'm going to flip it over, see if it's any better. And it's not on this one. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. So I'm going to sand a little bit more on this one to get it down. Okay, that's a little bit closer. Just trying to line up my edges as best as I can. I'm not a perfectionist by any means, but that's not too bad. I'm kind of looking at these veneer edges here. Okay, so then I'm going to take my glue again and then slap it all on nice and thick. Rub this. This is a pretty big joint, so I'm going to rub it pretty good, get rid of all that glue. And I'm also, to help me out here, just to help get the squeeze out, to squeeze out all the glue, I'm going to clamp this thing, and that'll help get some of that glue out. Not for long, but I can start. I've got a mess of glue here. I should have got me a wet rag. Okay, now I can get rid of all that glue squeeze out. But you don't want to hold a clamp or anything on there too long, because you give this thing 20 seconds and you will not be able to get these things apart. So you want to work fairly fast. Line up on both sides, line up your woods. I'm a little bit off on this side, but that's okay. This side looks perfect. This side, I can't get them quite on this end. I'll make this the top of the bell, because all this will be shaved away. And by the time I get down to the bottom of my bell, it'll probably be closer. So I'm going to just leave that alone. Now, if you wanted to, you could put a clamp on this from this edge to this edge with your joint in the middle. But you got to be careful when you put a clamp on there. It may still want to move on you. So I don't. I just let her go just like that overnight and wish her well. Does anybody have any questions on the construction of the bell? Is anybody still there?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, we're all here.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, so this bell has sat overnight, and it's still got some glue on it, so I'm going to take it back to my sander. I want to clean up both sides so I can see real good. Now I can decide, this side looks really good. This side's off a little bit on a corner here, so I'm going to make this side the top. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a square waste block. This is exactly 2 inch by 2 inch. It doesn't matter as long as it fits in your chuck and is perfectly square. It doesn't matter if it's 2 inches or if it's 2 inches or if it's just 1.5 inches or whatever. As long as it fits in your chuck and is perfectly square. It's 3/4 thick. It's just a standard board. And I'm going to glue this block. I'm going to try to glue this block to whichever side I decide at the top. Like I say, this is a little bit off on this corner right here, so this will be my top. And I'm going to glue this thing in, and I'm going to look at the corners, the seams of my joints, and I'm going to line up the corners of this glue block with the corners of this, with the joints as best as I can, and that is going to put my bell dead center, as close as I can, dead center when I put it in the lathe. So I'm going to line these angles up, which on this one isn't working out real well, but that's okay. You know, it'll be fine. People will be so amazed at what a pretty bell it is, they won't notice too much. Okay, so I'm gonna let that set overnight. So now we're gonna go to the lathe. So I'm gonna pick you up. I got my lathe in another room. A guy told me one time, if you want to mess up a perfectly good wood shop, put in a lathe. Okay, so we're gonna go to my lathe room, because you can kind of control the dust or the shavings on everything but a lathe. Okay, so I'm going to set this up. If I can remember how I did this earlier. Okay, now I gotta see, does that look good? Oh yeah, that's not too bad. Okay, can y'all still hear me well?
Yes.
All right. Anybody got any questions yet? Okay, so here's my bell, and here's my glue block glued on, and I'm just gonna jam this in there and tighten up my jaws. Now I know conventional wisdom says your face of your jaws should meet up with your bottom of your, your workpiece. Well, I'm not too worried about it on this piece. This gives me a little bit more clearance so I can kind of make my cuts, and it's just a bell. I'm not going to freak out over it. So now, if you want to, you do whatever you want to do. This is just a jumping start off point for you all, and for me too. I change things all the time on this. What I'm doing now is what I do now. Tomorrow, I might change things completely on this silly bell, and but that's the fun of it. I'm gonna bring my tailstock up. First thing we need to do is get this thing round. Now, what you don't want to do is just barrel in here and start cutting wood, because every time one of these surfaces comes off, one of these segments, these 4 segments, you're cutting unsupported end grain, and these are very likely to pull off. And that's okay if you do it at the top of the bell. You're going to be trimming that down anyway. But if you do it at the bottom of the bell, you're going to be losing diameter, and you may be losing a nice design. So you want to take your time when you're cutting into this to get this round. So let me get my face shield. Tell me, I always wear a face shield. Tell me if you all can't hear me as well, or if you all can't see as well, or anything else. Please shout out. Okay, I'm going to start with the bowl gouge. This is nothing special. This is Johan Michelson grind on this bowl gouge, but you know, this is nothing serious. You could use anything. You could use a screwdriver if you wanted to, probably a dull one. But I like to use this just to get everything round, and then I'll go with my spindle gouge, 1/2-inch spindle gouge, because I use that for just about everything I do. Okay, I also crank this up pretty high. I turn kind of fast, which is probably, you know, 2,000 RPM right now, just to get this thing kind of cleaned up. So I'm going to take it easy. I'm going to try to get this thing round. Now you can tell I barreled into the bottom on the top here. I got some big chunks that came out of that thing. And on the bottom where I took my time, it's, you know, very little bit of tear out. So that's what you just want to take your time. This is supposed to be fun. I'm going to look at my screen real quick, make sure y'all can see. Yeah, y'all can see pretty good, I guess. All right, I'm going to crank this thing back up. Okay, got it round. Now the next thing I want to do, I got these set up at 2 7/8. For how I do this with my chuck and everything, I need my outside diameter to be about 2 7/8, which is almost what it is. So I'm going to cut off just a little bit more, and then I'm going to go from there. And if it goes down from 2 7/8, well, that's okay as long as it doesn't go too much. But I don't want it to be any more than 2 7/8, or it won't fit back in my jaws of my chuck. Now that's just my way of doing it, and it seems to work for me. So whatever works for you is what you all should do. Okay.
Discussing it. This little cup just fits this whole.
Okay, does somebody have a question?
I was down there for that balloon festival, you know, with David and Sarah.
Okay, they weren't talking to me. Okay. Okay, now what I want to do, I want to put a little bit of a chamfer on the bottom of this bell. And that's going to help me a little bit down the road in the construction of this thing. Plus it's going to, I think it looks a little bit better. Just a little bit of an undercut here. Just a 45. I'm going to trim up this edge a little bit. And that's going to give me, a little lift on my bell. Okay, I'm still a little bit thick, but that's okay. I'm going to try it anyway. Okay, now I want to get the shape of my bell. And every time I do this, it's a little bit different. Sometimes it depends on what design comes out. Sometimes I'll make it narrower. Sometimes I'll make it fatter. So we'll see. We'll just open this up slowly and see what happens. I'm using a spindle gouge now, or a 1/2-inch, spindle gouge, shallow gouge, whatever they want to call it. This is kind of my go-to tool. Just point it in the direction you want it to go.
Watch how fast he does it, and you see how slowly I do mine.
Like these nice little ribbons that comes off of there. Okay, now I want to stop before I get too far and see what kind of a design I'm getting. Okay. Now also you can see I've got some tear out.
Down at the bottom. Now when he starts doing it, it begins that pattern. I've not done a laminated thing.
Yeah, I can get a lot of different patterns here, and you can see on the lead edge of every one of these segments, I've got some tear out right there, right there, right there, right there. So when my last pass, I want to take nice and I want to resharpen my tool, take it nice and slow, and get my last pass. But that's starting to look pretty good, I think. I'm still a little hair over, but I think I'm going to live with that. So I'm going to sneak up a little bit more. And you can see the veneer right there. That's the only veneer I used in this. Oh, there's another piece in there. But that really makes a big difference, that one little piece of veneer. So if you have some scrap pieces of veneer, you need to use them because it really brings out the highlight, really highlights the wood, especially when you got two woods that don't contrast as well. Put that maple veneer in there and it really looks good. Okay, so I'm going to go a little bit deeper.
Why are you showing me?
It's some other guy's show. I don't know what's going on. They're recording it, so I'll look at that a little later. Let's see.
I love those little ribbons that come off there.
I'm gonna leave this.
Okay, that should have been a much better cut. Yeah, I don't have near the tear out that I did before. I took my time. It looks like I'm going to have a lot of maple in here, but we'll see once I start to make the top of the OG. We'll see what that looks like. Okay, I'm going to clean up. I've got a little bit of tear out here. I'm going to use a little shear cut to kind of clean this up a little bit. Now, one thing I want to do right now, and I like to use sandpaper, just hit that edge, because that right there, if it's really sharp, that'll cut. Oh my goodness. And it'll probably cut right now too, but at least it's dull now, but I don't like to get cut. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to pull my tailstock back. I'm going to reposition everything. And hopefully you all will be able to see a little bit better. But I'm going to do the hollowing now. So we're going to move you over to here. Unfortunately, Zoom doesn't let me zoom. So it's going to be a little bit of a distance because I need room to move my hollowing tool. But you all can see that fairly well, I suppose. Okay.
Looking good. We can see you real well.
Good, good. How's the lighting? Sometimes the lighting's...
You've done an excellent job with the lighting. We had a little bit of a glare when you were overhead, but otherwise it's good.
Okay. Yeah, I sometimes got to play with it a little bit. Okay. So let's want just enough lighting, but not too much. And I need to get me a laptop so I can actually see what I'm looking at. We'll see what you all are looking at, but I'm not that sophisticated. Okay. Now, as far as hollowing goes, you know, any tool that you want, any tool that you're handy with, a carbide cutter, a scraper. I like to go with the 1/2-inch spindle gouge that I've been using because I can get that on the inside and it gives me a really good cut. If you're using a carbide tool, you're going to have a hard time getting a good cut on the inside without tear out on this dry segmented wood here. I'm going to have to move y'all back a little bit more. Hopefully y'all can still see well enough. I mean, this isn't anything special or anything. It's just hollowing out a little bell, so it's not a big deal. I want to make sure this is still tight while I've got it on here. All right, and I like the thickness on mine. I like about 3/16. A quarter seems a little bit thick, not horrible, but a little bit, and an eighth seems a little bit thin, a little bit on the fragile side. Not that, you know, it's a Christmas ornament. But that being said, I don't think it really matters a whole lot. You know, I like to turn thin, so I would shy more towards an eighth than a quarter. But by the same token, I don't want to ruin a good bell because it's just an ornament. All right, so I'm going to speed this up a little bit. I'm going to do a little. Not the best angle here. Okay, now I'm going to sneak up on this outside. And make that about 3/8. And I'm looking down at my side here, and I can kind of tell kind of where I'm at. And I'll kind of point my tool in the right direction and go for it. Get that a little bit more right here. Okay, now I'm going to take my time, because I would imagine this in here, yeah, I can feel it. I've got a little bit of tear out in here and everything, but I'm gonna sharpen this tool real quick. Uh-oh, lost my diamond sharpener. Well, I'm gonna go to the machine real quick and turn it on. All right, sorry about that. Okay, now I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna hit this bottom third. I'm gonna try to make it finish. I'm gonna try to get a real nice cut. This tool is nice and pointy, and it gives me a nice good cut on the inside of even though I'm really not going the proper direction, but it'll give me a nice clean cut. As long as I'm going to use this tool, as long as I can get it in there. Now the very top of it, where the curvature at the top of the bell, I won't be able to use this tool. I have to go with a different tool. But as long as I can, I'm going to use this. And it's going to give me a nice little bitty ribbons coming off that thing. I don't know if you all can even see those ribbons, but if you're getting ribbons like that, you're not getting tear out, that's for sure. And that's what you know, you can sand out little tool marks, but you can't sand out tear out. Okay, so I'm going to check that one more time. Nice and smooth. Yeah, I've got a couple of tool marks, but I don't have any tear out, so I'm going to leave that go. I am going to sand real quick. Just that bottom edge here, there was a little sharp. Now I'm going to go back and finish the top portion of my bell. Okay, is that good again?
Yes.
I can't really see it very well. Okay, I'm going to finish the top portion of my bell, but I wanted to do that while I had a little bit of strength here. Just, you know, that's typical stuff. Okay. So now I'm going to get rid of some waste wood here and just see what I've got on my pattern and everything. One more thing. I try not to get rid of all my wood up here because this is my surface that's glued to my waste block. So I don't really want to reduce that until I have to, but I'm going to go ahead and start curving in the top of my bell here. I'm just doing a little bit of shear cutting to kind of smooth that up. And once again, I'm getting these little bitty nice ribbons. And you can see my walnut coming back in at the top here, which is be a nice little design element. That'll be good. Okay, so now I've kind of got the gist of my bell shape. I'm going to go to sanding. I'm not going to do a whole lot of sanding because I don't want to do it in a demo. Oh, no, I got to finish the inside top. Okay, so this is about it. All I'm going to do is finish my curve at the top. Everything else, that looks like a fairly nice smooth curve. I'm going to go back inside. And since you all can't see very well anyway, I'm going to leave the camera where it's at unless you all want me to move it. This way you can see the angle I'm using on my tool. But I can kind of feel, and I've still got quite a bit. I'm only hollowed to about right here. So I need to go do the top half. And I'm going to do that once again with my spindle gouge. Okay. Let me get my calipers out here and see how thick I am. I'm a little bit thick, but if I'm a little bit thick, it's not that big of a concern. It's not, it's just a bell. It's just a Christmas ornament. You give it to your friends or sell it at a craft show. People love it. So I don't get too caught up in anything. Okay. Okay, I'm kind of erring on the side of caution on the top of the bell. Just because, I don't want to go through and all that. You know how it is. You don't want to go through the bottom of the piece. Okay, now I'm going to use, I got a Thompson carbide cutter here. I'm going to do the profile of the top of the bell. It's going to give me a little bit of tear out, but by the time I put a little jingle bell in there and everything and sand it, it's not going to be that bad. So I'm going to stick this in here. I'm just going to kind of make that, give me a nice rounded profile at the top.
Will they see me?
I don't know. I'll tell you.
All right. So that's not too bad. It might even be a little bit thick yet.
There's me.
Nah, that ain't too bad. I'm going to let it go. Okay, now would be a good time to sand. So I'm going to do some light sanding inside and out, and I can always remount this later, but I do want to go ahead and give it a little bit of light sanding. This is starting out with 180. And a power sanding would be great. I don't have my dust collector on because it's way too noisy in here. But we're just going to kind of give it a little bit of light sanding just to kind of make it look a little nicer. I need all the help I can get, but yeah, that's good. I got a little bit of tear out in the very top, but that's okay. But I think I got a fairly nice shape, so I'm gonna let that go. We'll see how it works. Okay, so now for the top of the bell, I get a piece of PVC pipe. This is a PVC coupling. This I think is a 2.5 inch PVC coupling, and I just parted off about a 1/2 inch of PVC coupling out of there. Then I took it to my bandsaw and cut me a little notch, and this will actually fit inside. This will actually fit inside of my jaws, and that way I can put my bell in there, and it won't mar my bell. That's another reason I put this little undercut here at the bottom of the bell, because if I came to a point, this would push out, this would get underneath there and push out my my PVC band. But being a little bit recessed like that, it holds on nice and strong. Now this never lines up perfect for me. It's okay. I'm just going to do some light cuts and sanding anyway. But as long as it holds it, I'm tickled to death. I'm bringing my tailstock back up just in case until I get rid of this piece. Now, if you want to, you can saw this piece off or whatever you feel is best. I am going to probably part it off or cut it off. Well, I got my my spindle gouge here. I'll just take it off. See, you can see it wobbling. You can see it wobbling a little bit. And I'm just finishing the top, so it's not a big deal. one thing I'll make a note of right now, if you get to the, you feel like you've gone too far on when you're hollowing or something, this piece right here is glued on here. You can use this this is mahogany. You can use this at the top of your bell. It doesn't have to be a waist block. It can actually be the top of the round part of the bell if you want to. If you want a taller bell or something, just incorporate that into your bell. I'm not going to on this piece, but you could very well do that. All right. Well, there we go. All right. So now you can either just power sand this, or what I'm going to do, I'm going to give it some light cuts, but then I'm power sand it to kind of blend it in. Give me a nice little rounded profile. I've got an indentation right here, I can tell. All right. Now the next thing I'm going to do, before I power sand this, I am going to drill a 1/4 inch hole with a Forstner bit, a 1/4 inch hole in the top of this. One thing, I'm going to do it anyway to accept my handle. And another thing is that way I can tell if I get done with this and I'm 3/8 of an inch thick or something like that, the top of my wall thickness is like 3/8 or a 1/2 inch. I will know because I'll be drilling into it. I can see it, and then I can reduce that if I want to. I can actually bring this down a little bit more if I wanted to. I probably wouldn't, but I could. Okay, so I'm going to drill this dude. Okay, so now I can look inside there, and I can tell that I'm about 3/8 of an inch thick, which is, it's a little on the heavy side, or it's a little on the thick side. Not heavy. Nobody will ever know. But
So Robin, you went all the way through.
Yes, I went all the way through with my Forstner bit. And that way, when I put my handle in there, I can put my little bell on the inside too. But I'll show you that here in a second. So I am going to reduce the diameter a little bit on this. I mean, on the wall thickness on the top, because I've got plenty. Just in case it might feel a little bit heavy. I don't think it would, but okay, so now I'm down to, it looks like a 1/4 of an inch or so thickness. I can see the bottom. So it's about a 1/4 of an inch thickness. That gives me a nice rounded top. Now, theoretically, the rest of this is already sanded. All I got to do is kind of blend this in. And I will do that with my power sander, and this is 180. Voila. Now, I typically sand these down. I like to sand pretty high, like to 600 or 800 grit, because when I get done, what I'm going to do, I'm going to slap on some lacquer probably or something like that and wipe it back off. And then I'm going to buff this thing to a nice, shiny, hard finish. So, and if you leave, I'm sorry?
1,000 grit.
Yeah. You can go to 1,000. I usually stop at about 800.
No,
but,
that's a joke. That's a joke, yeah. We say.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, I sand to, 320, 400, 600, all the way up to 800 usually on these things. That gives me a nice polished bell. All right, I got a little tear out there. Does anybody have any questions about the bell construction?
Oh, we lost your video.
What? Lost my video?
We lost them. Let's see if he reconnects. Here he comes.
Okay. Am I back?
Yes.
Back.
I apologize for that. I have no idea. Usually that only happens when I'm actually touching my phone. All right. Okay. Are we? Okay. Okay. So now, I'm just making sure. Am I back again?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay. Done with the bell portion. And theoretically, this would all be sanded down to about 600 or 800. Nice and lightweight. I think it's got a nice little curve to it. Some design. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it looks
Okay.
real nice.
Do we have time for me to make a handle for this thing?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to change my jaws real quick then, and I'll make a handle for this too. Because the handle, the handle is just as important. People ask me, my most often question is, how long do I make my handle? I've made short handles on bells that fit inside of a Christmas tree a little bit better, but I kind of like a longer handle, something that would actually fit in your hand. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to make a little bit longer handle. This is a piece of holly, but use whatever kind of wood. I would normally use maple. I like a light wood because it shows up better on a Christmas tree. This bell would show up pretty good on a Christmas tree with all the maple highlighted by the other colors. So I would use a light color. I like holly because it just turns so well. But if it's I'd probably use maple on this bell because it's a maple bell. Okay, so we're going to do a little spindle turning here. So, and these handles are pretty easy because basically I'm between centers. It's not like a finial where I'm kind of sticking out and I'm not between centers very much. But that's one thing I got to kind of remember is I'm not turning a finial, I'm turning a handle. So I don't want to make it too thin, which I have a problem with that because, I like to turn small things. But, so we're going to start off with, I don't see my roughing gouge, so I'm just going to use my bowl gouge. And I'm going to round this thing up a little bit. Okay, I'm going to start at the top, and I'm just going to make a little ball or something at the top. I'm going to do something similar to this, but not quite. This has got a little decorative. You can see the hole in the very top of my piece is from the live center, and that gives me a place to put my eyelet for the top. So that works out good. Now I've got a knot right there in the middle of my finial. So that'll probably turn out, but if it breaks, it's not my fault, it's the wood. So I'm gonna put a little ball or something here on the top. And I'm gonna use my, I'm gonna go to a 3/8 spindle gouge that I've got sharpened to a nice pointy edge. Another thing I'm gonna do, I don't know if this will help you all or not. I'm going to put a black. Does that help a little bit?
Yes.
Okay, I forgot to do that earlier, but it really helps when you're turning these little things. So I'm going to just make a little bit of a line here. I'm going to make a little ball this time. Just a couple little V grooves, and I'm going to kind of round over this, make a little bead. Make a little V groove right there. And then I'm going to pull my headstock away a little bit, my tailstock, just to finish the very top, just to make that round. If it's not perfectly round, that's okay. I can take some sandpaper. And I can make that nice and round with my sandpaper if I can't get in there with my tool. Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. It depends on my mood. Some days I'm a good turner. Well, no, some days I'm an average turner. Some days I'm horrible. Okay, So from there, I'm gonna make a little cove right here. I'm gonna turn this thing up a little bit. There we go. I hope y'all can still hear me okay. So I'm gonna make a little cove here. Always cutting downhill, always cutting larger to smaller diameter so my grain is being supported. I gotta remember, don't go too thin because this is still a handle. Okay, something like that. And you can see it's not real clean. That's okay, I don't need it to be perfect. I'm gonna take my sandpaper here. I'm gonna roll my sandpaper into a little curve. And I can sand that and roll that around and make that a nice smooth curve. So I don't get too caught up in being the best wood turner because it ain't gonna happen. I can sand it. Okay, that'll give me a little element on top of my bell, so I can give it a little faint little ringing, just a little bit of purchase there for my fingers. Now I'm going to go back to my bowl gouge. It has a little bit wider surface right there, and I'm going to make a long cove basically. Okay, so now I just want to get my end of it. I'm going to put it about right there. So that's kind of a random spot. I have no design purpose or anything. It's just a random spot. Okay, and I got to remember, not too thin. This is not a finial. This is a handle. Okay, so now I've got a nice long taper right there, but it's not perfect yet. So I'm going to take my power sander. I'm going to go down to about 400 or 600. Yeah, here's some 400 sandpaper. And I'm going to smooth this out and kind of make that a nice taper with my power sander. That's made a nice smooth taper here. And if you use something grittier than 400 or something, you go through pretty daggone quick. So I use, when I'm power sanding like that, I use 400 or 600 or something. Okay, and now I can roll my sandpaper once again, and I can get the top of this cove here. Just kind of roll it to give me a nice curvature right there at the top. Hit that a little bit. And I will sand all this as well. I will sand this all the way up to maybe even 1,000 or so. Or 2,000, make it a nice shiny finish on, especially on holly or maple. It polishes so nice. Okay, now I want to finish the very bottom of my bell. Now I'm gonna go ahead and sand all this right now. I shouldn't have to sand these surfaces. That surface right there was cut really well and burnished with my tool, so that should be fine. But I am going to come down here and go ahead and get this started. The bottom of the handle where it meets the bell. Right on that nice edge right there. Kind of tough to do, and I don't have the right glasses on. I could get stronger glasses. And I'm going to get close, but not all the way to 1/4 of an inch. Okay. So I've got this thing's all sanded and ready to go and really looking nice. I'll get this down to about 1/4 of an inch. And then I'm going to take, I've got a wrenchy here that I've sanded, or I've ground both edges of this wrench. It's a 1/4 inch wrench. I've got a 1/4 inch hole in my bell. So that should be perfect. So I'm going to cut this tenon with my wrenchy here. And that'll give me exactly 1/4 of an inch. All right. Now, another thing I want to do while I've got my little pointy spindle gap here, I'm going to just make a few little grooves, something more for the glue to catch on to. Kind of clean this up just a smidge too. Okay, and then I'm going to part this dude off, but I don't want to part it off. I want a fairly clean part, and I want it a little bit thicker than the thickness of my bell. So I had about a 1/4 inch top, so I'm going to go about 3/8 of an inch or so, and I'm going to cut this dude off. At the very end there, at the very end before it broke off, the fibers actually pulled out. So I've got just a little bit of a hole right there in the top where the fibers pulled out. And that's going to be some place where I can start my drill, and I'm going to drill a hole in the bottom of my pieces. You can see in this one where I drilled a hole. It's a little bit off center maybe, but there's a hole there. So this should fit snugly and right inside. Okay, if I would have done that right, it would have fit right inside that bell. And then I've got a hole in top, so I can take my bell, and I've got a little copper wire here, and I can actually take a pair of needle nose and glue that down inside that little hole inside there. But that right there, I don't know why they came up a little thick. I'm going to try it again. I can't get this one out. Okay, theoretically, that will fit in there, but that's really snug. But you can see how I've got just a little purchase there, just for a little light bell ringing, but I've got a big enough handle if I really want to give it a good shaking. But that's really tight, so, it happens. All right, does anybody have any questions on the bell thingy?
Nice job.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Beautiful work.
Well, thank you. I'll refinish this bell. Oh, I can show you that real quick. Do we still have a couple of minutes?
Yep, we can go on for another little bit. How much do you sell these little bells for?
I've never sold one. I give them away.
Oh, okay.
I don't sell hardly anything. To me, if I sell it, I got to make it really good. And I would rather just go in at it and see what happens and go from there.
Okay.
But I would imagine you could get $50 for a bell. I don't know, maybe more than that. I don't have any idea. But you can kind of see that this bell ended up. Let's see if I can get the lighting right again. All my design elements were right on the money. I mean, they are really looking good on this particular bell. So I could sell this one for a little bit more because it's actually pretty good. But I will. I'm gonna put you all back up here. Okay, can you see okay here? Can everybody see that okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna put this back in. Oh, I'm gonna change my jaws real quick. Now, if you get done with your bell and you don't like it for whatever reason, or on like this one, I'll put it back on and I'll resand it. I'm gonna rechuck this thing, and I'll show you how I rechuck them, which is nothing, super special. But if you need to access back inside your bell, I take the waste block that I parted off, and I drill a hole dead center of it, and then I put a 1/4-20 bolt in here, and I will actually put that back on with a washer, and then a nut, and tighten that back up. And this is what I'll do with this bell because it's not sanded. I didn't finish sanding it. So I'll tighten this up and I'll rechuck it. And all I'm doing is saying I'm not going to be turning it or anything, but that'll give you a way to rechuck this thing so you can finish sanding all over again. Which is, like I say, I'll send this bell to you all for I don't know if y'all do an auction or something like that or whatever you want. But now I can finish sanding on the inside, the outside, and everything. And then I can turn it around and chuck the bottom back up with my PVC, and I can resand the top and you know, I can dress it up a little bit more if I look at it and it's not just perfect. Does that make sense?
Very good.
Now this little jam chuck or whatever, I did concave just a little bit on the top of this waist block. Now I can't get it off. On the top of this waist block, just for the bell, the top of the bell to kind of fit in a little bit, you know, a little bit better. You can see I've got a little bit of a dish right there where this fits right in there like that. But anyway, if you have to go through that much trouble, I hate to go through that much trouble for a bell, but hey, sometimes it's necessary. Okay, anything else that, you know, I can show you my grind. Sorry?
What kind of finish you put on it?
Oh, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and finish this real quick because finishing it really makes it pop out. I'm going to pretend like this has been sanded down to, you know, 800 grit or so, because I would never put finish on it, you know, like it is. But since you all can't tell how rough it is right now, it's, you know, I can get away with it. But I would, I use, I got some lacquer here, and I know it looks pretty cruddy, and it is. But I would just slap some lacquer on it. And of course, I would have done this on the inside and the bottom of the bell around the beginning. I would have finished sanding the inside when I had the opportunity. But the top of it, I would throw lacquer on, and then I wipe it right back off. The lacquer might be thinned a little bit. You could thin it a little bit. But all I want to do is seal the grain. I don't want to put a heavy coat of finish on it. I just want to seal the grain so I can, so it doesn't get fingerprints or dirt or anything. Now I can take this after just a few seconds, and I can take this to my my Beal buffing system, and I can buff this down to a nice shiny hard finish that's really makes it look, you know, a smooth shiny finish on it. But that's all I do to finish, to put finish on it. I don't, oil doesn't dry fast enough for me, and it doesn't give me the, I don't know, it doesn't seem to give me a high gloss after I buff it like I do, but it probably does. I'm just kind of, you know, the lacquer is so much quicker. I use, this is a Deft or Minwax brushing lacquer, and I put it in a jar, and you can see it's pretty nasty looking right now because, and it's really thick and ugly. But if I get a couple pieces of wood in it, it's no big deal because I'm just slapping it on and I'm wiping it right back off. So it's, you know, and it'll polish up. I'll send you all a bell, and you can see how well it polishes up when it's sanded. When it's sanded down to fine grit, put a little bit of lacquer or whatever finish you want, and that usually works well for me. Anything else?
We found that the Doctor's Pens Plus finish gives you a nice hard finish to it.
Oh yeah, I bet it would.
And then the other one that seems to work real well is the Aussie's Oil, which is a Sheila wax, very similar type finish.
Oh, I don't think I've heard of that one.
Yeah. Yeah, they work well.
I will definitely try that. I'm all the time looking for something. As long as it's easier and gives me, you know, really good results, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen and women.
Thank you so much, Robin. It really was a great show. You've done a very good job. Everything's, you know, I've learned a lot, and I think many of our members have learned a lot. So we had, how many, Jeff? We had 16 at this count. So very good. Now, I had a question for you. Chapel Hill Woodturners is doing Zoom meetings with Frank Penta, and he's teaching a whole series on laminations and that kind of thing. Would you like me to include you on that distribution?
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah, I'd like to see how he does it.
Okay. I'll send you the last one that I got. They do it every other Thursday at 2:00 in the afternoon.
Okay.
So,
yeah, that'd be cool.
I'll send you a little message with it and keep you on the link. So we can keep up with each other.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Another thing, if you want, I've got a tutorial, a picture tutorial on making this bell. If you have any questions or something, on my website at robincostelle.com. You can go to our website, and at the bottom of my website, I've got a bunch of little tutorials, and the Christmas bell and a Christmas ornament and a couple other things are on there if y'all are interested.
Okay, good.
If you have any
Beautiful job.
questions, just contact me.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate
Very
it.
nice.
Thanks for having me. Y'all have a good day.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay.